Hey guys, this is Mel, and I'm back to talk about Legacies, episode 304, titled Hold On Tight, which premiered Thursday, February 11th, 2021 on the CW. I am recording roughly an hour after the episode is aired, so huge spoiler alert. If you haven't seen the episode already, please go do so first, and then come back and see what I have to say about the episode. Quick YouTube shoutouts to Rodrigo Rodriguez and IndieGames123. Thank you both so much for your comments on episode 303 for the recap, and then just an overall thank you for everyone who's been watching my Legacies videos. Thank you for returning after having this longer hiatus than we had planned for Legacies content. So I do appreciate that you want to just tag along and hear what I have to say, because I will admit that TVD-Verse, its episodes always gets a strong reaction out of me, whether it's like overjoy or like mad or like confusion. It riles up all those emotions. So I'm glad to have you all come and take a look with me. So as we're going to get into it, I'm going to try to do this in 20 minutes. Start the clock. Let's begin with what happened. So first off, this episode was actually meant to be the original season 2 finale before COVID delayed everything. So that's a huge thing there. The episode quote, which is "Hold on tight," was said by Hope to Landon before they both submerged into... Spoiler alert, we'll talk about that later. Timeline though, I believe, first off, this episode takes place for this course of one day. But I believe... See, I actually don't know. Now that I think about Josie, I don't know. But before I thought about Josie, I thought this episode took place the day after the events of 303, which was after the musical, because Alaric was shown coming back from spending the night with Sheriff Mac. Landon talks about Hope having her musical debut. So there's that. But also, when it comes to Josie, she mentions that she already knows that Alaric and Sheriff Mac are somewhat dating, even though Alaric just decided that the night of the musical. And yet also Josie was at the school doing an interview when she just returned for the musical. So I really don't know. You know me with the timelines. It's like, it's never clear in this universe. Like, we either go like, it's the next day, it's the next day, it's the next day, or then it jumps to a major event. And it's like, well, you just did a huge jump. Why? Kind of a thing. So anyways, that. But an interesting thing, though, is the fact that Landon actually labels this episode, or this day in this episode, as the 1-year anniversary of him and Hope being officially together. Now, take in mind, he has calculated that he's taken out her time away when she was in Malivore, and he was dating Josie, and then the time when they thought they were not sure if they had broken up or not. So I'm assuming that's after he wasn't a Phoenix anymore, I think. But according to Landon, today is the day where it is officially 365 days that he's been in an official relationship with Hope. And they're not consecutive days, which usually most people would count their anniversaries by. So, gotta hand it to his commitment and wanting to do all that complicated math. So, I'll give the guy that. Episode reminder, I stated it already, this was meant to be the original season 2 finale. That means a lot of things are meant to be tied up, or kind of new cliffhangers to bring us back into what was meant to keep us hooked for the summer. So that was something there. That was a huge reminder for me, the fact that this was meant to be the finale. For featured creature, we have the Necromancer being the bigger bad, wanting to resurrect Malivore, which he does, and then bringing back a bunch of monsters from Malivore that he had consumed. So we do see some repeat monsters in some showdowns. So that's something there. Now for episode breakdown, to the point where usually I would break it down to ABC. This episode, really, a lot of it is tied back to the main story of Team Monster Returns. There's some small sub-plans to the bigger plan, which I could have accounted for, but then they all kind of intertwine with each other. So I figured, why not just do one huge storyline? And then we'll get through that. So, Team Monster. We get Alyssa completing the spell that resurrects Malivore. She needs the blood of a witch, hers, blood of a werewolf, Raphael's, and a blood of a vampire, MG, as she connects it so that every monster that comes out of the Malivore pit will draw power from MG, making him weaker and weaker until he dies. And then her plan was for the Necromancers to then resurrect MG and tweak him so that he would love her like he was always meant to the first time around, because for her it's unrequited love and all that. Well, yeah, we'll get to that. So because of that, monsters on the loose at the high school. Alaric and the students go to the high school to stop the monsters and kind of like be like the foot soldiers in a way, and with a little bit of the Mystic Falls Police Department with Sheriff Mack in the lead, helping out with the assist. And they evacuated the town as well too. Kind of similar to the Vampire Diaries series finale where they had to evacuate the town again to deal with the Hellfire thing. So there's that. We got Josie and Lizzie being tasked to stop Alyssa and try to find a way to break the spell that she had connected the Necromancer to in order to bring back Malivore and also save MG. Together with MG's conviction that Alyssa can change and that she can do the right thing, she teams up with the twins and they create a new prison world because the supernova from episode 302, when they created one for Raphael, supernova was still in place. And so they could make another prison world to trap the Necromancer, Malivore, and all the monsters connected to Alyssa's spell. And when they did that, it freed MG's connection to the spell and also freed Alyssa's connection to the spell. I think it might have also freed her from Malivore's hold over her. Or not Malivore, the Necromancer's hold over her. Because it seemed like she had a really, truly new start. But in the meantime, though, because they created the prison world, Hope and Landon somehow get trapped there, too. So they have to find a way out, and that is by jumping into that prison world's Malivore pit and then coming out onto our world, kind of like what Hope did in the beginning of Season 2, in the Season 2 premiere. So pretty much they ended the season, Hope ended the season the way she started it, kind of, in the pit. So, yeah, shit, I didn't even realize that until now. Full circle moment for her. So anyways, last scene of the episode was after sleeping together, their first time on all fronts. Hope watches Landon spit up Malivore goo and then dissolve into what I believe is the new Malivore pit, and he takes the necklace with her. I mean, I'm not surprised that this is the ending we got, because I was really waiting for the other shoe to drop, because it was too early for them to get a win in the episode, and it was too early for them to get a nice moment. So it was like, since this was meant to be a finale, I was waiting for that cliffhanger moment that was meant to hook us in for the summer, like I mentioned. So Landon disappearing in a pile of goo, yeah, that did it. So that was the last scene there. And poor Hope is just like confused and shocked by all this. So character-wise though, we have Josie. Her first scene in the episode is interviewing Ethan back at the high school and trying to figure out what life is like for a Timberwolf student. We also find out at the end of the episode that she's not ready to have her magic again. She only temporarily took her control of it because they needed her help to stop this monster mayhem. So Josie says that she wants to try to live a little bit of a non-witch life, a non-magical life, and transfer to the Mystic Halls High School, but she'll only do it if Lizzie supports her. And we don't get Lizzie's answer to that. But Lizzie, she admits that she is pining for MG, and like she realizes that it was never that she didn't think MG was good enough for her, it's that she always feared that she was not good enough for him. So just when she realizes that she wants to be with him, she kind of misses her window because MG decides to be with Alyssa, because he realizes that who he was to Lizzie was what Alyssa was to MG. So kind of like our unrequited love thing. So MG had unrequited love for Lizzie, but then Alyssa had unrequited love for MG, and he didn't want to do that. So he wants to give Alyssa a chance and see where it can go for the two of them. And Lizzie sees this. She sees them kissing, and instead of coming between them, she takes a step back and says, like, well, if he's happened, then that's all she wants, kind of a thing. So, which shows great growth for her, too, but I'm also feel bad for Lizzie, just because, like, she waited too long. Yeah, I'll mention it now, because it's not anywhere else on my list, though. But, yeah, what Lizzie's it's hard though, because on the one hand, it's always, I really like that MG is fine, as much as I don't like Alyssa. Like, she really annoys me. But the fact that MG had Alyssa who always saw him and who put him first when he's always never put himself first, I really like that he was finally going for the choice who appreciated him. So I do understand that. But then on the other hand, it's like Lizzie just needed time. And then now that she got that time, he wasn't there. So it's like, I don't know. It's one of those tropes where I'm always like, you're always missing what, you don't realize what you have until you've lost it, kind of a thing. And I feel like that's kind of what's happening with Lizzie. So on the one hand, I'm like, yeah, it's like, I don't even know if I'm making sense right now. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this love triangle. I really don't. But I remember when it was very early days in the Vampire Diaries, and it was the whole Stefan, Elena, Damon thing. And it was before there was even the hint of Elena reciprocating her feelings for Damon. So maybe like season 2, where it's like we were just finding out that he had feelings for her, and then she was aware, but like we couldn't tell if it was reciprocated anywhere or not. And then I turned to fan fiction because I was a Delena fan. And then I always went to the stories that had like Elena being with Stefan, and then Damon loving Elena, but then he moves on or he goes away. And then it's in his absence that Elena realizes that she wanted to be with Damon. But then like it was already too late. And then I would go for those because I'd want Damon to be happy and to move on, or to have Elena be regretful of the fact that she let him go. And I'd be fine with those ones. And then it's like eventually they'd come together. It's like those were the ones I saw it out like what, 8 years ago when that season was airing. Wow, which is wow. Yeah, 8 years, right? 8? Roughly? 2010 was around that. So 10 years ago. Wow. 10, 11 years. Jeez. Sorry, sidetracking. But anyways, that is what this reminds me of for Lizzie, MG, and Alyssa right now. So there, I'll cut it off at that. But with Alyssa, so let's get to the other part of this love triangle. Alyssa, we find out in this episode, her parents actually accepted her as a witch. And even though they loved her and accepted her for having these powers, she still lost control of them, and that is what ended up killing them. So it wasn't that like she got rejected and she retaliated against them. It was she literally had no control, and she lost her family for it. So that was sad too, because I did expect it to be like she got thrown out and she retaliated, but it makes it a little more heartbreaking that the family that loved her and accepted her for who she was, she ended up losing them because she didn't have the control at that young age that she needed. So there's that. And then Ethan returns after his long absence since episode 206, I believe. But we find out in his brief moment with Josie in that Timberwolf article she was saying she was writing, we found out that he lost any of the prospective sports scholarships he was aiming for due to the fact that he injured his throwing arm. And then Josie apologizes to him about that, even though he doesn't understand why, because he doesn't think it was anybody's fault. But if you remember, she is the one that caused him to break his arm through magic, in the inference of Vardamus, who was actually Agent Clark. That seems so long ago too. So there's that. And also Alaric, with him, we have him making the decision that he gives Sheriff Mack the choice on whether or not she wanted to remember the supernatural secret. Because again, he had to invoke the compulsion on her to help her, to get her to take his lead in this monster fight thing. But then after the whole day, she even commented about saying, like, it's not going to matter. You're just going to make me forget about today. And then Alaric makes the choice of, well, maybe you should remember. So now it's in her court whether or not she wants that to happen. So that's something there. Some small tidbits that were just fun little things. was Caleb and Jed seemed to have a competitive rivalry in regards to monster kills, but yet they're collaborative at the Salvatore School celebration party with DJ Jed and rapper Caleb providing the entertainment. So that was pretty cool. Also, I wanted to point out when Caleb and Jed arrived in Caleb's red car, I don't know what kind of car it was, but when they came up driving like that, I got flashbacks to when we had the Genie episode back in season 1, and we had the world where Hope never went to the Salvatore School, and she went to like the Michelson Institute, and they came up with a very slick black car. They all came out all very cool and like spy-like when they arrived at the high school. And then when I saw that whole car thing happen this time around, I was like, oh, they're recreating the moment. And it was just like, yes. So that's a little something there. Also, just another tidbit is the fact that MG was tasked with protecting the Ascendant that is in charge of the Necromancer's prison world. So it's not the same Ascendant that we've seen in regards to Kai's prison world and needing the Bonnie Bennett blood. But it seems that they always need Bennett blood, regardless of which type of prison world they create. Because we had Kai's prison world, and then we had his first prison world, and I think it's the second prison world for him. Then there was the prison world for the heretics. There was I wasn't going to say the students with Jay, but they were in Kai's prison world. There's Raphael's version of a prison world. And then there's the Necromancers. So that's at least 5 different prison worlds, and yet they all required Bennett blood. When I just thought it was just for that specific Kai prison world that needed it. But I guess Bennett blood is the one that created that particular spell to begin with. So yeah, that's something. And they all each have a different Ascendant. So it's not the same Ascendant for every prison world, which I thought it was. I guess they got used to just using the same one. So anyways, that's a tidbit. But let's move on to the most shocking moment of the episode. I won't say this is a shock, but we do see Malivore possessing Landon for a moment. It wasn't shocking since they alluded to that in season 1, that was one of the goals, Malivore's endgame goals. But what shocked me was the fact that how much I liked it when it happened. Like, just the execution of it. So I was, like, very shocked that I was rooting for that instead of being mad at the fact that the enemy was now possessing one of our protagonists. So that was a shock for me, just my reaction, not the actual event itself. And then I guess the shock was the fact that we were in a new prison world for the Necromancer. I wasn't expecting that. And I really don't know how I feel about it. But we'll get to that later. But let's move on to top 3 favorite moments. First off, Hope's yellow eyes. We get the moment that Landon just died, or so she thinks. She's kind of in a state of shock above his ashes. Necromancer's taunting her, and all of a sudden her eyes turn yellow. I was like, yes, finally, girl. Like, first off, we haven't seen her eyes turn in such a long time. Like, I don't know if it's just because of like the huge delay between episodes that we've had, or maybe it's because it actually has been a long time. But like, I haven't seen Hope go werewolf in a while. But when she did the eyes, it wasn't Hope I was seeing. I was seeing Klaus. Because, like, Klaus had the very distinctive yellow eyes. And for some reason, it wasn't just random werewolf eyes I was being reminded of. It was, like, Klaus's hybrid eyes I was being reminded of. And I'm like, oh, it's gonna happen. But then I was kind of disappointed that all she did was behead the Necromancer. I was expecting some hybrid thing to happen. Like, maybe the claws, and she, like, chops it with the claws, beheads him with the claws or something. Or I was expecting something that attributed to her being a tribrid and not her just slicing his head off with a sword. I don't know if anybody else thought of it, but the only thing was like the yellow eyes. Just that appearance was like, yes, tribrid reminder. Also, I kind of thought maybe she would like go full feral on him in her rage. But again, I just got a simple beheading that could have been done by anybody with that knife. So I'll leave it at that. But my second favorite, as I mentioned, was Landon getting possessed by the Malivore and then fighting the Necromancer. The reason why it shocked me so much was because of how much I liked seeing it. Just because the shift in Landon was eerie in a sense, but it was like cool in a way. And it was just like, you kind of got this sense of intimidation, which you're meant to. And I mean, you saw it in the Necromancer when he realized that Malivore was actually possessing Landon's body. You saw that instant switch of a fear factor for him. And I was vibing with that because the Necromancer can be really annoying. And I'm like, oh, kick his ass, Malivore Landon. So it was very interesting to see that type of a shift. But then after it happened, I kept debating whether or not is he still in Landon. There's the timer. Because now it's like, okay, so when Landon came back to life after Hope made that speech after beheading him, and he said the line about how like he didn't need a weapon if Hope was by his side. The way he said it, I was like, is this Malivore talking? Is he gonna pretend to be Landon so that he has the thing that could kill him as being on his side? Kind of similar to like in the originals when the Hollow was like the originals were targeting the Hollow, and yet she decides to possess the youngest member of the Michelson family, knowing that the originals would not harm the youngest and most beloved of them all, therefore ensuring the Hollow's survival because they weren't going to kill the thing that she was using as like a shield for herself. So when Landon said that line, I'm like, could he be Malivore? Because then if he was, that's smart, because the Malivore is hiding in the creature that his enemy, his most toxic fiend, is in love with and would do absolutely anything to protect. And he's hiding within him. And it's just like, that would have been perfect manipulation right there. But then I also got cringy when they kissed, and like, please don't be Malivore. Let it be Landon and Hope kissing and not Malivore and Hope kissing. But then like that also, it would have been very interesting to see if he was possessing Landon, how long he could pretend being Landon for, or what would it take for Hope to figure out the difference. But then that also led to like, also don't be Malivore, because then if they slept together while Malivore possessing Landon, is like that would have been eerie too. I had mixed feelings about it, but I know when it was Malivore possessing Landon as he fought against the Necromancer, that was cool for sure. But we'll talk about Malivore Landon in a little bit. But a small minor favorite I did have was the fact that Ethan returned. I mean, I've been waiting for it, especially since they announced that he was a series regular, because I was kind of waiting for like, okay, in what capacity could they bring him? Because as I said before, if he's a series regular, he has to come to the Salvatore School, because otherwise, like, there's no reason for us to go to the Mystic Falls High. I mean, we were only there for a short time because Alaric and Hope had to go there, right? So he would have to maybe be an untriggered werewolf, and that's why he became to the Salvatore School. But now we have the idea of Josie possibly transferring there, so maybe that's why we see Ethan being around more, because they have maybe a budding friendship coming through for that. But Ethan only had 2 scenes. One scene with Josie, where it was the sneak preview that they gave, and then one with Hope, as he was escorting students out of the school tunnels and Hope was waiting for the barrier spell to be brought down. They have this quick exchange. And I'm like, the last time you guys saw each other, didn't he ask her out just before everybody remembered who Hope was? And I'm like, I'm waiting for something more. Like, I'm still waiting for that potential between them. Like, yes, I love Landon, and which is Hope and Landon. Yes, but like, I saw potential in Ethan and Hope. And I'm still bummed I didn't get to see that potential, you know. But yeah, I'm glad to see Ethan's returned. I mean, it took 4 episodes to get us into it. But also, yeah, I don't know. I'll just leave it at that. But moving on to top 3 peeved moments. Okay, talk about Malivore again. The fact that Malivore using Landon as his vessel was very short-lived is a peeve for me. Because they hyped it up so much in season 1 that that was something Malivore was gearing towards. Like, his main goal was to get Landon to be his vessel. And yet they do it, and yet it's over and done with in the span of 5-10 minutes. And now it's like, you hyped me up for this being a very bad thing in season 1. I get it. And now it's just like, that was it? That made no sense. It's kind of like on the Vampire Diaries. You hype up Klaus Mikaelson so much to be this big bad evil, and yet he just turns out to be the biggest teddy bear ever when you meet him. Then it's like, wait, what? That's not the man we just been told we're supposed to fear and run for our lives. This guy is nothing, kind of a thing. So it was a P for me because I did expect a lot more to come out of Malivore possessing Landon, or a lot more out of that weird father-son dynamic they're supposed to have. And I did mention it. It would have been really cool. A lot of things to do if they had Malivore possessing Landon and have that for a few episodes, because then he can easily infiltrate the school. He can easily get closer to Hope. I mean, we've seen it happen on season 2 of the originals, wherein a bunch of other Mikaelsons were possessing witches and acting all undercover and such. We got that when Klaus first got introduced on the Vampire Diaries, where he possessed Alaric first before, and playing his little games before revealing who he actually was. So yeah, and then you end up trapping him in a prison world, and it's like, I don't know, it seemed like too easy of a fix, or it was very short-lived when I preferred it to be a little bit more. And that's another peeve I had, was the fact that Malivore is now trapped in a prison world. It seems like making a prison world for all the big evils is their default solution now. And I don't know how I feel about that. It really had me remember the old, what was it? The old running joke on the Vampire Diaries, how like every plan relied on Bonnie's magic. And if they never had that, they would have failed at everything. Which is true, but then also, like, you can't have that be the basis of everything, kind of a thing, right? So now it just seemed like lately, I don't know if it's just because it's the last few episodes they relied heavily on the prison worlds and creating new prison worlds. It just seems like that's their default now. When it's also supposed to be such a very rare thing for them to do. You need very specific ingredients. You need very specific celestial events to happen, kind of a thing. It just seemed like too easy of a fix. So that was a peeve there for me, because now, what, you're going to stick this being that was supposed to be your big bad for the whole series, you just stick them in a prison world, and then that's just it? Like, I don't think that's it with what happened with Landon in the end of the episode. But, like, yeah, it felt weird for me. And then another peeve I had was the fact that Josie has the idea to transfer to Mystic Falls High. The reason I don't like this idea is just, I don't like the idea in general that Josie was able to make herself not a witch because she transferred her siphon magic into a coin, and it pretty much allowed her not to be magical anymore. I don't like that, just because it seems like too easy of a solution. I mean, none of the other students at the Salvatore School, it's not like any of them can turn off what makes them a supernatural creature. They have to constantly deal with that, and that's part of the growth of them as either vampires, witches, or werewolves. They have to deal with the thing that makes them supernatural each and every day. They can't run away from it. And the fact that Josie was able to put her magic into an object and then pretty much rendering herself human, it just seemed too easy of a fix for her. And it's like, well, now I can just be human. So then it's like, well, why didn't you not do that from the very beginning? Why even bother learning magic then? If there isn't always a way for you to just be human and go off. Kind of a thing. Right? I mean, I know her mom did it when it came to when she was 22 and dealing with Kai trying to kill her and stuff. But she literally put her magic away because if Kai found it, he would kill everybody and take it from her, kind of a thing. Plus, also, it made sense because her mom was an actual witch. Josie is a siphon witch, which is something I'll bring up later. But yeah, I don't know. It felt off to me that Josie was able to allow her... The fact that she was able to remove what made her magical from herself just so that she can play human. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. It just seems like you're running away. Like your issue was with your powers. You should be able to still have your powers and try to deal with the control of them. Not like, oh, I'm going to strip it out and then not have to deal with it again. Kind of a thing. So yeah, that is something. But also just, I'm thinking also from a production standpoint, if she goes to Mystic Falls High, that's going to be another set of like location sets they're going to have to do, because now they have to go back to the high school and they have to flip back and forth between the high school and the boarding school. And it's just going to be twice as much work than if all of them were just at the boarding school. So there's that. But let's move on to random questions. So this is connection with my question with Josie just now. I don't understand how a siphon witch like Josie can just put her power away for safekeeping when she doesn't actually have her own magic to begin with, like a witch like Alyssa or her mom or Bonnie, who actually had a constant access to magic, and they could put their powers away, making them human. But with Josie and Lizzie, they're siphon witches. They have to steal magic from something in order to use it. So I don't get how Josie is able to put that magic in somewhere so that she doesn't have it. I mean, it's not her magic to have or to store away to begin with. Like, you know what I mean? I don't get it. Right? Because it's like, I'm trying to think of what would be a real world equivalent. And I guess it's like if you were to, say if I needed a car and I borrowed a car from my parents. Okay, say if I'm a siphon witch, right? If I'm Josie the siphon witch and I needed a ride, I would have to borrow a car and take it around a drive, and that would be me temporarily borrowing a power. Versus, say, my brother who owns a car, and he'd be the regular Bennett witch in this scenario. Owner of the car, he can just take his car, drive around, easy access and everything. Easy access to magic like a Bennett witch or any of the normal witches. Me, the non-car owner, aka siphon witch, I would need to borrow a car or borrow magic in order for me to drive around or use magic. But, okay, I'm trying to keep track of my analogy here. But if I borrow that car and then go sell that car to somebody else, I can't really do that because it was never my car to sell in the first place. Right? So it's like, as a siphon witch, if I'm borrowing magic and then I'm putting magic away, how can I do that if that magic was never mine to put away with? Please tell me if I'm making sense, because I'm losing myself here too. But it's just there's still the random question. The title of my segment here is, I don't get how Josie's able to do that if she literally always takes magic from magical beings or objects and temporarily uses them. How can you store that away if what she takes is eventually going to go away anyways, right? I'm just going to move on. There's that. Another question was, I'm still not sure why Hope and Landon got sucked into the prison world. Maybe I missed it when the Necromancer was trying to explain it while he was headless, but I don't get why they got pulled in. I understand why the Necromancer, I understand why Malivore and all the monsters, because they were tied specifically to the spell that Alyssa and the twins were trying to stop. But they couldn't have known that Hope and Landon would be there, right? That's a question. Why were they dragged into the prison world? Another question is, do Alaric and the other students remember Hope and Landon? Because they had to jump into the Malivore pit to escape the prison world. And as you know, if you go into Malivore, everybody forgets your existence. But I'm wondering, because here's the thing too, because when Landon reveals that he still remembers Hope, and he thinks maybe it's because they came out of the pit together, but I'm wondering if it's because Hope had to go into the Malivore pit first in the season 1 finale, and it's her going into the pit that had everybody forget who she was. And then later on, she had to go into the pit again to get back out. But everybody already forgot who she was. So I don't think it was that second trip that did it. So maybe that's... So if everybody still remembers them after this, I'm thinking maybe them going into the prison world's pit is because it's the second pit and not the first pit, where the first pit is what erases the existence. I hope my logic tracks with you, because I'm losing hope right now. No pun intended. I'm losing my train of thought too. But yeah, overall question: do Alaric and the others still remember Hope and Landon? Another question was: do you think Landon turned into the new Malivore pit because he's his son, or because he was recently his vessel, or was it some afterthought repercussion as a phoenix, or like what? Why? And also, why did it take so long for it to do that? Plus, it also has me making me wonder though, if Landon didn't turn into the new Malivore pit, could Malivore use Landon as a vessel to get out of the prison world, and this was him leaving Landon's body? But then I'm wondering, why would he leave Landon's body if he was trying to get it in the first place? So, I'm confused. That definitely would have been a good thing to, like, this is why I'm glad this was in the finale, because then I would have had to wait the whole summer to get answers about what just happened to Landon. Instead, I just have to wait a week. So I can live with that. Last question. I forgot to ask this question in the previous video, but where are all the Salvatore School teachers? Literally, the only adult at that school is Alaric. I mean, last week we got Robin Goodfellow, but he was a monster who was posing as the guidance counselor. And here I'm thinking, where are all the other teachers? The only last time we knew of any teachers was when Emma and when Dorian were at the school. Otherwise, it's like, is Alaric the only teacher there? Which I can't believe. But, like, I've never seen anybody else. And then, like, I vaguely remember any other teachers being referenced. So I'm like, where are the faculty at the school? You know? So there's that. But let's move on to predictions very quickly based off the promo for 305. It's not in the promo, but this episode is actually the 300th episode in the full Vampire Diaries universe. So that's including the Vampire Diaries episodes, including the originals episodes, including Legacies. This one's going to be episode 300. Also, I found it actually quite interested in the fact that the original premiere would have been this episode of season 3. So that would have been interesting, just to see how if and how they would have made it more fan service milestone-y, like you would usually do for 100th, 200th episodes and stuff. So there's that. But the promo shows Alaric helping Hope find a way to get Landon back, and he brings out that therapy box that we got when they did that whole simulation thing with Emma. I think in 214 with the black and white episode. So there's that. But the synopsis, though, reads, after one of their own goes missing, Alaric suggests Hope turn to the therapy box, which thrusts her into a twisted game set in a summer camp slasher flick. Meanwhile, Lizzie's attempt to spend some time with MG doesn't go quite as planned, and Josie makes a big decision about her future. Landon, Caleb, Ethan, and Jed also appear. Interesting. chances are Ethan's going to show up if Josie actually does go through with her transferring to Mystic Falls High. So that's going to be there. Caleb and Jed. I don't think they're going to go into the therapy box with Hope, but a version of them might appear in the box. I'm not sure. It'd definitely be interesting to see. But I'm hoping the therapy box is their way of maybe bringing back familiar faces because it's the 300th episode in the TVD-Verse. I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that they're going to use the therapy box that way, because it could be any simulation they want, kind of a thing, right? So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's all I can really think about. But what did you guys think of the episode? What did you guys like about it? What do you think will happen next? Let me know in the comments down below. Love to hear your own thoughts, theories, and opinions about all that good stuff. Also, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos if you haven't done so already. If you want, check out my Tumblr page. Link for that is down below. I read blog promos, web clips, quotes, gifs, synopses, news, all that good stuff. All found in one place. Go check that out. I'm just entering into my reading week, so if anything, I should update sometime this week, but I do have a lot of things planned that I need to get a jump start for school. A lot of production plans and stuff for school projects and things that I really have to get a step ahead of. But I'll try my best. Same thing for WordPress. Link for that is down below. Anything I post on online is linked through WordPress. A little more organized, a little more detailed, but still work in progress as well. But if I update Tumblr, I'm going to probably update WordPress with it, because it's usually a day thing that I do the full thing, full sweep through. So that's about it, guys. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you so much for your patience. I hope you come back and see what I have to say about the next episode. And also just thanks for listening to this long video. It's twice as long as I thought it would be, but I had a lot to say for it, which I hope you forgive me for. But yeah, so check back in next week for the next episode. Ring the notification bell if you want to be notified, in case it's not actually set in stone when I post it. But until then, guys, this is Mel. Wish you all a great day, great week wherever you are. Please stay safe during this pandemic. Please wear a mask and have a great day.